I want to show you 3 ways that you could approach building rats in Commander. There are 3 ways to build most commanders. Strong, fun, and mean. Let's take a look at 3 different approaches to building rats in Commander, and the video starts right now.
Highest level of gratitude to our patrons who power the channel through Patreon. Check out the Patreon link in the description to learn about monthly giveaways, VIP Discord access, and even our official playmat.
With any rats deck that you're going to build, you have to start with Relentless rats. You at least need to answer this question for yourself. Is this going to be a Relentless Rats deck, or is it not going to be a Relentless Rats deck? Now, it could be partially a Relentless Rats deck. This could just be a lot of really good creatures in your deck. A deck can have any number of cards named Relentless Rats, and they grow each other. There's a lot of ways to reduce the cost, but you will constantly be playing 3 mana giant creatures sans any abilities, but they will just become massive and overgrow your opponent's entire line. With that deck can have any number of cards named Relentless Rats, you could have up to 30% of your entire commander deck be Relentless Rats. Much like the 30% of you that are watching this that are subscribed, you are our Relentless Rats, and we love you. If you want to become a Relentless Rat, click that subscribe button. It does way more than you could possibly know, way more than just showing you our next video. Helps us out a ton. Click on that and answer for yourself, are you going to be a Relentless Rats person? If you're going to be a Relentless Rats person, also run Thrumming Stone. I just wanted to get these 2 cards out of the way because we are going to look at 3 different ways you could approach building the Rats creature type in Commander, but a lot of them could have this as a major plan. In fact, I'd probably recommend it. You're just going to have a constant slew of very large creatures, especially if you can return them all to the battlefield at the same time, which we'll talk about coming up later. Thrumming Stone, spells you cast have Ripple 4, which means whenever you cast it, you can reveal the top 4 cards of your library and cast spells with the same name as that spell from among the revealed cards without paying their mana costs. And so, in the color black, there's a lot of easy ways to search up specific cards into your hand, get Thrumming Stone onto the battlefield, cast a Relentless Rats, and if you've got enough in the deck, you will just go crazy infinite, and there will be a ton of rats spilling onto the field all at once. So think about including Thrumming Stone and any number of Relentless Rats to fill out the rest of your commander deck and be the bulk of your creatures in your rat deck. With those 2 cards out of the way, I also want to give a quick shout out to Nashi Moon's Legacy. This is a rat commander that will give you access to 3 different colors. We're only covering 3 different rat commanders that I think are strong, fun, and mean, but they are all in the color identity black. You will have a mono black commander deck if you choose any of those 3. You could pick Nashi, run any of the strategies we're going to talk about, but then also have access to the excellent cards in green and the excellent cards in blue. Something you might want to explore, but not something that we're going to talk about in this video. Nashi's attack trigger is going to let you exile legendaries or rats from the graveyard, copy it, and then cast the copy. And so you will get that creature card back onto the battlefield or legendary card back onto the battlefield with Nashi. So it could be a cool way to gain access to more colors than we would typically have access to with the rat creature type, and a little bit of a recursion attack trigger thing going. I want to start with Lord Skitter Sewer King. This is one of my favorite new rat commanders that I've seen in a long time, and rat commander options have been growing like crazy over the last few years. They've really given us a lot of new rats to play with in Commander. But Lord Skitter from Wilds of Eldraine is going to have 2 separate abilities that we want to look at. That first group of text, whenever another rat enters the battlefield under your control, exile up to 1 target card from an opponent's graveyard. So we're going to be hating on opponent graveyards the entire game. We're basically just shutting graveyard strategies out if we target them down. It's going to be crazy. Just by passively playing this deck, we will be turning off major strategies in Commander. Then that second group of text, at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 black rat creature token with this creature can't block. We don't care about the blocking clause because we're going to get an extra rat onto the battlefield every single turn on combat. So we are going to be growing our line of rats every single turn passively, in addition to playing the spells that we're going to play that are going to be doing that same exact thing. I think that this is a really strong inclusion for a passive graveyard hate strategy, and believe me, as a Reanimator player, I'm in my Reanimator era. It seems to be all I can build as far as commander decks recently. This card scares the crap out of me, and so I know that it would make a really strong commander. We're going to ace graveyard cards, and we're going to passively, without any other investment, grow our rat line. So what do we want to do? We want to play cards that are flavorful first. Lord Skitter's Blessing in a Lord Skitter deck. Yeah, when it ETBs, we're creating a Wicked Roll token attached to a creature we control, which means it gets +1/+1, and when that aura goes to the graveyard, aka the creature dies, even though there are other ways to get it off the creature into the graveyard, each opponent loses a life. So we're just going to kind of be picking our opponents down over time. But the important part of this, at the beginning of your draw step, if you control an enchanted creature, you lose 1 life and you draw an additional card. This is Phyrexian Arena, drawing us an extra card at the beginning of our turn for 1 less mana. And it's flavorful to our deck. We got to run it. I just have to have that included. Ogre Slumlord's also going to help us grow our attacking line and provide us a passive buff. Whenever another non-token creature dies, that's not that we control, that's literally any other creature on the battlefield. Non-token. You can create a 1/1 black rat creature token, and it just gives your rats death touch, so it de-incentivizes blocking. For a go-wide strategy, this is huge, and we definitely want to include it. Bad Moon. 2 mana. Black creatures get +1/+1. There are lots of different ways to do this, but this one is just cheap as far as mana cost. Look for these types of effects and stack them. Once you get your entire rat line up like 3/3 or 4/4, it is going to be tough pickings for your opponents to choose what to block and what not to, especially if we're running things like Ogre Slumlord to give them all death touch in addition. We can give them a lot of abilities, but buffs, anthems, that's something you're going to want to look for on your side of the battlefield. Icon of Ancestry. We've got a little anthem, and then we've got a little velocity. We're going to be playing our rats onto the battlefield. We are a creature type deck, so that means that we are a little bit weak to board wipe. We need to watch out for removal, especially mass removal. That can really hurt us as we grow our line. Icon of Ancestry is going to help us keep our hand full so that we can rebuild after those. You choose a creature type, choose rats in this case when it enters the battlefield. We're going to get that passive anthem, so all of them are going to get +1/+1. Then we're going to pay 3, look at the top 3, reveal a creature card of the chosen type, a rat, put it into your hand. Rest go on the bottom of your library in a random order. Passive, love the anthem, make sure you're keeping your hand full. And then you want to talk about anthems. This is the anthem of all anthems for creature type decks. +1/+1 for each other creature on the battlefield that shares at least 1 type with it. Wow, our rats will get huge. This is something you want to drop when you have an enormous attacking line. You're ready to go. You think you can win it if you get a ton of huge buff on your rats all at once. Drop this, go to attack. That's how you want to play this. Make sure that you are ready to at least remove 1 player before you get this on the battlefield, because it's going to be a huge target on you once you've got something like that in play. Ash Coat of the Shadow Swarm could be an option for being your commander, but I think I would include it in this Lord Skitter deck specifically. Whenever it attacks or blocks, other rats you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of rats you control. So it's a little coat of arms on an attack trigger from Ash Coat. And then at the beginning of your end step, you can mill 4 cards, and if you do, return up to 2 rat creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So you can get Relentless rats into your hand constantly with Ash Coat of the Shadow Swarm. I like this, especially in a go-wide strategy. I like the passive rat creature token creation more because we need an attacking line, period. Even though Ash Coat can get you cards back from your graveyard and buff the team, I'd rather this be some kind of like surprise, hello, we can attach boots to it, attack on the turn we play it, and it's like that coat of arms win condition that I was talking about. Specifically with this Lord Skitter deck, this is a piece of tech that won't go well in other rat decks, but will really play strong in Lord Skitter. Gravestorm, at the beginning of your upkeep, target opponent may remove a card in his or her graveyard from the game. If that player doesn't, you may draw a card. You know what? We are going to target the opponent whose graveyard we've been targeting down, who has no cards to remove from their graveyard, thus they have to choose to let us draw a card. Love this. Little specific tech for commanders. That's one of my love languages. Patriarch's Bidding. I also talked about how we want to recover from board wipe by returning them all at once. Patriarch's Bidding does that. 5 mana sorcery. Each player choose a creature type. Return all creature cards of a type chosen this way from the graveyard to the battlefield. Rebuild your board after a big wipe. For the fun way of building it, we got to go with Marrow-Gnawer, right? Like, this is the rat commander for the longest time. This was the only option, and it's a good option. It's nice to have a good option, especially when it's the only option. And I think Marrow-Gnawer is just a fun way to build rats still. All rats have fear passively, so it really helps your attacking line get through. And then sacrifice a rat, put X 1/1 black rat creature tokens into play, where X is the number of rats you control. So that tap ability can grow our line like crazy. We do not rebuild that great from a board wipe with this. At least Lord Skitter is going to be dropping that rat on the battlefield every single time. I think Marrow-Gnawer could go in the 99 really well, especially if you've got ways to use and abuse that ability, which we'll talk about in this section, but still a fantastic option for commander of your rats deck. Let's run cards like Wave of Rats, and let me tell you why. When it dies, if it dealt combat damage to a player this turn, you return it to the battlefield under its owner's control, so it just keeps coming back. And it's got Blitz as well, which you can cast it for the Blitz cost, which is 1 more mana than its traditional cost. And if you cast it for its Blitz cost, it gains haste, and when it dies, you draw a card, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So with Wave of Rats and Marrow-Gnawer on the battlefield, we can cast Wave of Rats for the Blitz cost, which means it's going to get haste, and when it dies, we draw a card, but we're forced to sacrifice it. We play it for the Blitz cost, we attack, then if it deals combat damage, we've got this great clause that it's going to come back to the battlefield. We sack it with Marrow-Gnawer. We put X 1/1 black rat creature tokens into play, where X is the number of rats we control, at least 1 with Marrow-Gnawer there. We sacrificed Wave of Rats, but it's already dealt combat damage, and it's got that Blitz clause, so it's going to die. We're going to draw a card. Then we're going to return it to the battlefield, and the whole Blitz thing is gone at that point because it's already dead from us sacking it to the Marrow-Gnawer. Sweet little rat wombo combo there that I think is particularly good in Marrow-Gnawer, but Wave of Rats is going to be good in any rat deck. Ayara, First of Lochthwain. Now this is where Marrow-Gnawer can get really good, because if you've got a ton of rats on the battlefield already, Marrow-Gnawer is going to double that. We're going to have Ayara on the battlefield whenever it or another black creature, we're looking at the rats, enter the battlefield under your control. Each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. This is like a huge shotgun blast to your opponent's life totals. If we can bring in 5 rats at once, each opponent's losing 5, you gain 5. Wow, really, really good. Plus, we gain the ability to sack those rats and draw cards. Now, I wouldn't really recommend too often running creature types that are not in your creature types that you're trying to focus on. But specifically with a Marrow-Gnawer commander deck, I think Ayara is a good card in the 99 to get you some extra bonus off of those creatures entering the battlefield all at once. Big chunk of them entering the battlefield all at once. We can play around with Marrow-Gnawer's tap ability, Thornbite Staff. It has equipped creature, has 2, tap it. This creature deals a damage to target creature or player. We don't care too much about that. We care about the passive clause that it gives that creature. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, untap this creature. So you equip this to Marrow-Gnawer, tap Marrow-Gnawer, sacrifice a rat. That creature's dying, so Thornbite Staff's ability, whenever a creature's put into a graveyard from play, untap this creature. You create X rats, where X is the number of rats you control. Then Thornbite Staff has untapped Marrow-Gnawer, and you can do it again. You can just keep going. Wow, that's a lot of rats. We can also use things like Sting the Glinting Dagger, newer card from Lord of the Rings. At the beginning of each combat, untap equipped creature. That's all I care about. I don't care about any of this. It's cool that we could give it haste. So Marrow-Gnawer, the turn we played, if we've got 2 mana to equip Sting and Sting was already on the battlefield, we could start using that ability immediately. But at the beginning of each combat, untap equipped creature. That's each combat, yours and your opponent's. You can use Marrow-Gnawer's ability once per turn. It's not Thornbite Staff, where you can just create infinite rats and say, okay, pass, and hope it gets all the way back around to you. Unless you did it at the EOT, which is probably when you should do it. But Sting is going to let you do it every single turn, just doubling down on extra help for that activated ability. Same thing with Illusionist Bracers. If it isn't mana ability, whenever an ability of equipped creature is activated, copy the ability. We don't have to sacrifice another rat. We'll just get double that ability to create X rats, where X is the number of rats you control. Also think that you want to run cards like Mirkwood Bats. Again, I don't recommend running too many non-rats in a rats deck. I would say that about any creature type deck. But Mirkwood Bats in particular, we're creating token rats. We're going to be sacrificing token rats. Really good way to burn down your opponent. Man, this card is good. But holy crap, was it overpriced out of the gate. Nezumi Bone Reader, I think, is a really other good way to have a nice sack outlet to do other stuff. Let's close our opponents out of the game. Let's make a huge board and then pay for every black that we can pay into Nezumi's ability. Sack a creature, which we have a ton of rats to do that. Target player discards a card. We can only do this at sorcery speed, but we could just eat through our entire opponent's hands, everything they've got, if we've got the black mana and we've got the creatures to sacrifice for this ability. You can just do it over and over again on Nezumi Bone Reader. Big fan of this. I'm also a big fan of cards that tech really well with our deck specifically. Foul-Tongued Shriek. Target opponent loses a life for each attacking creature you control. You gain that much life. Those creatures can be attacking another opponent, and we're about to take them out. And then for 1 black mana at instant speed, you can have your other opponent that the rats are not attacking also lose a life for each attacking rat. And if we were able to get Thornbite Staff and Marrow-Gnawer going, and we are untapping and ready to attack, and we got Foul-Tongued Shriek in our hand, we're taking out 2 opponents simultaneously. We're probably taking them all 3 out if we've got infinite rats, but you know what I'm saying with Foul-Tongued Shriek. And let's talk about the mean way to build rats. It's poison counters. Let's have the bubonic plague be our win condition. That's something we can all get behind. Karumonix, the Rat King from Phyrexia. All will be 1. Black, 1 for a 3/3 with Toxic 1, which means players dealt combat damage by this creature also get a poison counter. That Toxic 1 is a replacement for Infect earlier on. Typically, with Karumonix, if it had Infect, when it dealt 3 damage, you would get 3 counters, but Toxic is a way of limiting that while also having some larger creatures and be, more viable as far as power and toughness. So we've got Toxic 1. It also gives other rats you control Toxic 1, so you can create a ton of rats, attack through, and only really need to get 10 rats to hit your opponent, and they die. Then on an ETB, enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library, reveal any number of rat cards from among them, put the revealed cards in your hand, rest go on the bottom. So Karumonix can also help you refill your hand. I like Karumonix coming down late in the game. Let's already build up a board. Our hand size is dwindling. We want to get in there. Other rats you control now have Toxic 1 when we've played it. Suddenly we're a poisonous threat and we've refilled our hand a little bit. Put some more Relentless Rats in our hand or any of the other tech cards that we're going to show. Look, Grave Pact, this is a huge one in this deck. It's huge in any version of rats, but in this Karumonix poison version, you want to keep your opponent's side of the battlefield clear. You don't want any blocks. There's ways to do that, but one of the main ways is we're going to be creating way more creatures than you. We probably have some token creators like Lord Skitter, Marrow-Gnawer in the 99 if we're playing Karumonix as the commander. So we're going to have a ton of tokens. We are going to out-creature you. That means that we can have our creatures die at a higher rate to wipe your board off with Grave Pact effects. And then anytime a creature we control dies, each other player has to sacrifice a creature. It's getting around Indestructible. It's getting around Hexproof. It's just a really good card to keep your opponent's side of the battlefield clear so there's no blocks, so you can poison them, especially when we're going to out-creature them 10 times out of 10. Locust Miser is a really cool card in this deck too because it's just mean. We're going the mean route, so let's play all the mean rats now. We're already going to be the target. We might as well stay the target. Locust Miser reducing opponent's maximum hand size by 2. Oof. They got to discard cards. You can also run Gnat Miser if you just want to double up on this effect. Kind of a lower stakes version here. It's funny how the difference between maximum hand size reduced by 1 seems really big to maximum hand size reduced by 2 to me. But if you're going to double down on the mean thing, run both of these for sure. We should also run cards like Ichor Rats in this version because it's going to enter the battlefield and automatically give each player a poison counter. We're going to talk about Proliferate in a second, but once we can just get 1 poison counter on each opponent, our way to victory is going to be a little bit easier, but you got to get that first poison counter on it. Also a rat, so we got some viability there too. I was talking about your attacking line needs to get through. Cards like Cover of Darkness. Choose a creature type. Chosen type have Fear. We've seen that Marrow-Gnawer can give fear passively, which is can't be blocked except by artifact or black creatures. So we dodge a lot of creatures in Commander, and our creatures are able to get through and connect and get that poison damage rolling. Same thing with Intimidation here. It's just a 5 mana version of the effect, and it's all creatures, not just cards of the creature type. We don't really care. We're going to have mostly only cards of the creature type, but Intimidation is just going to give us doubling down, redundancy on these effects so that we can get our poisonous little rats through. We can also give them Menace passively. Piper of the Swarm, originally from OG Eldraine, rats you control have Menace, and we can get crazy in here with creating more rat creature tokens once per turn, or we can gain control of creatures by sacrificing rats. This is one that you probably want in the 99 of any version, but with this version in particular, we want our attackers getting through. Now, we talked about Proliferate. There are 19 cards in the color identity black that have Proliferate on them at the time of shooting this video. One has to do with stickers, and it's from Infinity, so we're just going to say that there are 18 cards with the word Proliferate in the color identity of Mono Black Commander that could be in your deck at time of making this video. Drowning Nicker's one of them. It's a decent removal. -4/-4 is going to hit a lot, and you're going to get to Proliferate just for 2 mana, which is every opponent that already has a poison counter is going to get 1 more poison counter, and we're a little bit closer to victory. There's also different ways of getting this Proliferate thing going. Search for the phrase gets a poison counter. Cards like Vraska's Fall, each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker and gets a poison counter. I like that it says each opponent, and it's going to do something like Ichor Rats, which is drop a poison counter on everybody so that we can start proliferating those things. Vraska Betrayal's Sting can come down as early as you having 5 mana, and that's 0. Draw a card, lose a life, proliferate. You're going to get to drop another counter on Vraska. You're getting to drop poison counters on all your opponents, and you've also got some removal with that middle ability, and if you can get to the ultimate, great. Do it. Win the game. You got lots of options for rat commanders, and a lot of them are interchangeable of the same 99, but you can see how Karumonix needs a little bit of a special route to play, and Marrow-Gnawer has some specific stuff that would play with that ability if you're guaranteeing that ability out of the command zone. But let me know down in the comments how you're building your rat deck. Make sure you're subscribed if you liked this video at all, and come hang out with us on Wednesday nights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We've got the Jake and Joeler Magic live show. We'd love to see you there, talk about Magic news and anything that's on your mind. Other than that, I'm tapped out. Catch you later.